Good afternoon. Uh, Welcome to another edition of Let's Build the Road to Inbound 2025, where I'm doing my best to share the journey on the way to Inbound 2025 as a correspondent. And it looks like we've got some fellow correspondents today. We broke the seal last time, or a couple times we've broken the seal of inbound correspondent joining the show. We had Casey Hawkins on, and last time we had the mayor of inbound, Rob Jones, and now we're joined by Tracy Siri and Aaron. I should have asked you how to say your last name.
Oh, it's Aaron Mazze. Aaron
There
Mazze.
we go.
Yeah.
Aaron Mazze. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Love it. Absolutely love it. We love the opportunity. Thank you, Chris.
And let's just go into right there. Why do you love the opportunity? Aaron, we'll start with you.
The opportunity to go to inbound and be a correspondent?
However you want to pose it. This whole experience, I think you've signed up. Why did you want to be an inbound correspondent? Let's start there.
Well, I guess, like you said, the whole experience. So I think it started about 11 years ago for me now. Last year was my 10th year. This is my 11th year. And I had no idea what I would be signing up for, but I had been attending a lot of industry conferences over the years for the various organizations I was working for. So I was always going for them, never for myself. And so 11 years ago, I got to go finally for myself to a conference that I had no expectations. And oh my gosh, I think it was like the first day I got out of the first class. They were handing you books back then. Like you would go into a session, and as you walked to the session, it was like, you're going to meet the author, and they would hand you a free book. And I got to meet, if I go back and show you, your mind might be blown about all the people that were just like there, including Brene Brown. I mean, it was just nuts. And so they're handing you these books, and I'm like, this is amazing, all these writers. And they start talking, and I think I ran out of that first room, and I couldn't get fast enough into the next one. I was so excited about the environment they had created. Also, one last thing I'll mention is, if you guys are familiar with the TED Talk series, I've always been such a huge fan of that whole conference experience, but it's very expensive to attend. And when at the first inbound I went to, not only were they having all these wonderful little speaking and learning sessions, but they had these mind-blowing keynote speakers, and I never would have ever had that experience before. So within the first few hours, I was hooked, and telling everybody they got to come to this show and just experience it. It's wonderful to be in a place where you're with so many like-minded folks. So yeah, that got me hooked, and here I am today, 11th year in a row.
There we go. A ton to dig into there. And I almost put something like that in the post, because I believe this is your first time, right, Tracy?
Yeah.
Going to inbound?
Yeah, I'm complete opposite end of the spectrum. Yeah, I've been using HubSpot like 2 years. Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm kind of the type to just dive in and then be like, wait, how deep is it? So that was where I'm at with this. We jumped into HubSpot and we're like, okay, this is amazing. We love it. And then, just being active in the community has been great. And, I'm a CAB board member this year. And then I was like, I'm going to go to this thing by myself, knowing no one for the first time. How can I get even more out of it? Figure it all out, if at all possible. So applied for the correspondent part too. And so now I'm doing all the things, and just, I'm here in a hotel because I just did a community event last night. We got some swag.
There we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did that a couple
Oh, very nice. Should have probably just worn the shirt today.
Yeah, HubSpot, if you're listening, you need to come to North Carolina next. Stop emphasizing the West Coast so much and come out here sometime. No, that's actually really exciting for you, Tracy. The show, I think this is not to try to get like too verklempt over the concept of what inbound can offer, but inbound, the mission is in itself a pretty great way to be introduced to marketing if it's your first time going to a show like this, and then appreciating what the entire show is actually supposed to be all about. And then you have the event itself and all the other interesting experiences that happen there. But just the concept of leveraging inbound marketing is something I've always been really fascinated with. over the years, especially how it's been such a great strategy for life science marketing where I'm focused in. So to go to a show like this and actually watch and see and learn about how other parts of the world are finding ways to leverage this kind of understanding and strategy is remarkable. And I'm always learning something every year. So every single time I go, I get to meet new people. Like Chris said, you get to network with folks too, and I love that. And at the same time, I'm also learning things I never even would have anticipated around what inbound marketing can do for companies. So anyway, I hope you do enjoy your first time going to the show, Tracy.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Just in talking to some of the community people last night, you know, a couple of them didn't know anything about inbound. They literally just use HubSpot. You know, they're in and out of it, and they popped in because they were local, and they were like, "You're going to what? How did you get into? You know, how did you get to there? What's correspondent? What's cab member?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm all the things. Like, I'm all." HubSpot. And then I was like, you know, Amy Poehler is going to be there, and they're like, "Why is Amy Poehler going to be there? Does she use HubSpot?" I'm like, that's how it works. But yeah, I was like, she's a keynote speaker. She's gonna, you know, never mind. So yeah, we talked quite a bit. We had a good time last night, so it was fun.
That's great.
That's awesome. Yeah. I can't get over the serendipity. Like, it's such a hard thing to explain to people, but when you're there and when you feel it. But even on this call, like, I have some life science background, Aaron.
Yeah.
And now I immediately want to have a different conversation with you. But yeah, just kind of showing up and being a part of the community. Like, if there's any event where it's super safe to just dive in and then ask how deep it is, it is inbound, because there's really so many ways to get value. Having said that, and I'd love your take here, Aaron, since this is going to be number 11 for you. Is that what you said? But first time not in Boston, in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I have no doubts that the team will do their best to make sure that experience stays intact. But all of this is like, yeah, this is how it's always been. That everybody knows BCEC and, you know, the lawn on D, and like, we're in a new place.
I was this close to Teddy Swims one year because like it was raining and nobody knew he was starting, and I like walked out there and it was like me and 10 people and Teddy Swims, and I'm like, lawn on D, man, let's bring it. Lawn on D.
So there's always all these places that people are used to planning for ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it this morning, like, you know, Profoundly is going to have a booth, and like trying to think about, if we were planning for it to be in Boston, there'd be questions that we could answer, like, no problem. Like, where should we try to ask people to meet up at, and like try to do these like little impromptu sessions, right? Because there's so much of that available usually at inbound. That's where it's just going to be exciting to see, like, no matter how long you've been there, it's going to be like a brand new experience in terms of just a new venue. So how have you, you know, how are you trying to like maybe get ahead of the curve outside of being a correspondent, which is probably the best way, Aaron? What else are you thinking about in terms of new space?
First off, and this is kind of funny to tell Tracy because she wasn't there last year. When they made the announcement last year in the auditorium with there's thousands of people in the audience, there was like this grumble. And there was like this real audible, like, oh, like they were really like almost hurt. I actually laughed out loud because I couldn't believe how many people were taking this really personally. Yeah. The very mature conferences that occur in a lot of industries will do this every other year. Let's be on the East Coast, let's be on the West Coast, to be more accessible. So I've always kind of like scratched my head about how come they're getting away with this being in Boston every year situation. And it, by the way, over the years, Boston's been its own challenges too. So, excuse me. So I'm actually really interested to get a different audience out there on the West Coast side, especially for companies and people who have not been able to either afford or just weren't feeling like it was convenient enough to go to a show on the West Coast, on the East Coast. So I think for that, there might be a different feeling to the show in itself. I'm hoping we're kind of embracing the tech sector to a certain degree as well, with all that being embedded there. There's also a very large life science presence actually in that area as well. So I've been encouraging some of my clients, if you're listening, to come to this year's show that should be in their backyard. So Silicon Valley being right there is already like in itself kind of an exciting thing. really interested to see how they're going to embrace the space, embrace the area in different ways that they may not have been able to before, especially when it comes to access to certain kind of speakers, like with Amy Poehler, and Marquez Brownlee is going to be there, I think, too, and a few other big shot folks that you're just like, oh my God, look who they're getting to come. And that could also be because we're on the West Coast. So we're benefiting from a lot of that. There's also a different mentality. I think when you talk to people from California, you think they're in a different country. Like they really feel like that's a different place on this earth that's separate from the rest of us. So it's kind of fun to get, into that culture, into that vibe of people that are out there. It's also a different mentality overall. It's like how they operate. It just in itself is always remarkable to talk to folks from Silicon Valley and how they interpret and see things in a very positive light. Obviously where technology can go, and obviously Inbound being hosted by HubSpot and being all SaaS, organization, it's great to have more like-minded people out there to be at the show for us in California. Yeah, so I'm thinking it's exciting, Chris. It's good.
Yes, well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's an important take to understand this year, because obviously AI first mentality, makes sense to be where it is, and open it up to a new, group of people. And Tracy, I'd love for you to get a chance to respond to the California vibe that you might be bringing to Inbound.
Yeah, well, I will say that it is kind of a different world out here. I was born and raised in Indiana, so we moved here in 2002, though. So I don't know how long you have to be somewhere to be sort of almost from there, but 20-something years seems like a while. But I will say that the state is like, it's kind of 5 different places, honestly. San Diego has its own vibe. That's where I'm from. But, you drive an hour and a half north into Orange County, and even just pockets of Orange County are vastly different vibes, and then all the way to San Francisco, it might as well be a different state. A whole different place up there. So, and I feel like I meet a lot of people kind of like me who are transplants, either short-term or long-term, from who are out here just figuring it out. So I do think it's going to be a probably a very different vibe from what it's been in the past. Just last night, I was talking to someone who's been to 4 or 5 inbounds, and obviously they were all there, and he had decided he wasn't going to go this year, just didn't want to make the trek. And then he learned it was in San Francisco, and he was like, oh, well, now I have to. So I think that might be a few people's kind of to what Aaron was getting at, like didn't feel like making the trek. It's just up the state now. So now they have to go. So yeah, I do think it's going to be an interesting, I wish I had something to compare it to. But I will be interested to hear people's take after.
I would be curious to know if the makeup of the audience in their professional background is going to shift from what it is normally in Boston to what it might be now in California. I'll just be interested to know if that, not the demographic alone, I'm just thinking like, are there more marketers there? Are there more technologists there? More sales folks? I feel like with the East Coast side, they were starting to get a lot more people that were outside of marketing, which I found interesting. And so I'm just curious if that's going to continue that trend when they come to California.
Yeah. But I am curious, Tracy, like as a newcomer and a correspondent, like what do you hope to kind of do to maybe help, bring that fresh perspective and like be a correspondent? What have you thought about, like how you're gonna operate like week of, and like what you're hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, a little bit I have. And actually I've been using the Frankie, the GPT Frankie that was built for us, and just kind of asking him some questions here and there and trying to figure out what makes sense. But what's funny is I asked him one question and he didn't really think it was a great idea. But then I talked to a couple folks last night at the community and we built on the idea, and now I'm doing it. So that was kind of funny. I think it's going to be fun for me. One of your comments somewhere was that when you first started going, you did a lot like what Aaron was saying, like you ran from thing to thing to thing to thing. And then in your last few, it was like you almost didn't go to any of the courses and classes and events. You were doing all these just kind of outside head-to-head things. I can't remember what they're called, but yeah. So I'm going to want to find a balance in there somewhere. I do enjoy, kind of soaking in absolutely everything that can be learned from all of those sessions. I'm very interested in signing up for some of the sessions, but I'm going to try not to be too disappointed if one of the sessions is full, because I feel like that's just an opportunity to go do something else. Meet up with some people that I know or whatever. So I'm going to try to keep a pretty good balance on that. Between the Slack channels and the community events and all the things, I'm making some pretty good, friends, if you will, that I'm looking forward to connecting with. One of the things that I'm looking to do, because my background is in the arts. I used to be an art teacher, and I was thinking about doing a bunch of little tiny like watercolors of sort of the HubSpot logo with some silliness behind it, QR code on the back, and then like have people go find them. And then maybe if you found one by the final day, everyone meets in one spot. If you all like have one and someone wins a hat or who knows what, I don't know. But just to kind of, create some fun and some ways for people to keep an eye out for others. And that was my first idea.
Well, there's usually a few scavenger hunts available each year. So
did I lock up or did you?
Definitely
Shoot.
something that
One of us locked up.
Might be accustomed to. So
yeah, we're here, Tracy. Yeah, we're here, Tracy.
We're here. So not a bad idea at all. And I think that's the best way to create like experiences like that. And again, in this space, in this community, like the ability to do that around this group of people, it's like there's no barriers to entry, right?
Yeah.
So literally you can make it what you want it to be, right? And all it's going to take is some posting on LinkedIn. You're definitely not going to show up not knowing anybody. That was interesting last year, Aaron, like, because year one, 2023, I had just become a partner, right? Having been a HubSpot user for like, 6-7 years. But I get in there, like, don't make time for anybody. And I'm just like, just session after session after session. But there was still this feeling of like, oh, I know who you are. Like, I see you on LinkedIn every day. We just haven't met in person yet.
Yeah.
Right. And then next year, after doing all the Let's Build shows and making time for the conversations in the hallways and really not scheduling much at all, led to just a much different experience, still like highly valuable, but just meeting new people. And also like, personally leveraging the work that I had done up to that point to try and build a brand. We're making time for, on the other side, people coming up saying, hey, like, basically they're not saying it like this, but it's like all that hard work you're putting in to LinkedIn is paying off, because now we have different conversations, and it's just a lot of opportunity there for even a first timer like Tracy.
Oh yeah,
to just get immediate value, right?
Yeah. Well, personally, I absolutely agree. And I was going to say that when I went to last year's show and they started this correspondence program to have us dream up whatever we want to go do, it was extremely daunting. I had an idea in my head and I was going down the escalator onto the show floor, and there was this massive creator studio and there was all these other podcast rooms. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my idea is totally not going to fly. There's all these professional, equipment and people around with schedules and all this amazing production. And so I kind of like, at first I was like, I'm going to give up. But Chris, you're right about one thing. It's an environment that you can really do pretty much whatever you want to do in, and you'll find your way. And so I decided, no, I'm not going to take what I saw over there, this beautiful studio they had built up. And I'm not going to accept that that's the end all be all. So I did turn on my camera and I did just walk up to some people, and I happened to walk up to some very important people that were extremely open to being part of my experience at the show. And I could drop the needle on anybody. I mean, literally anybody. It was so funny at how I could just like talk to anyone at the show, and it would be this amazing conversation about what their journey was and what they get out of it. But not only why they're there, but why people should be more open to that networking environment, that you should really get out of your shell at least once or twice a year and try to be looking outward and not just so down in the weeds all the time. And it makes us all feel like, okay, when you get to these kind of shows, the work is worth it. that were out there actually making an impact. And it's kind of fun to see all that happening. So anyway, I did find myself like dropping the needle on certain situations that were hard at first to kind of transcend the uncomfortableness of it, like walking up to complete strangers. But the moment I asked, it was like everybody was like, sure, I'll do this. And turning on that conversation and sticking it on LinkedIn, as you said, Chris, it was incredible. In some of the conversations I had, unbelievably went viral. I had no idea that would happen. And so that was a lot of fun for both me, HubSpot, and LinkedIn. I think everybody really did benefit from seeing that platform as something very different than how other people had interpreted, especially LinkedIn before in the past.
Yeah. And especially for any of the correspondents out there, like literally, like if you're worried about any kind of, let's say, pushback, like you get to say that you're a correspondent, right? So worst case scenario, you're like, oh yeah, I'm a correspondent. I'm supposed to be doing this stuff, because you are.
You are supposed to be doing this stuff. Yeah. And I think this year they're going to help us out maybe a little bit more, and we might get like a shiny sticker or something on our lanyards or something. I don't know what. But people did just believe me. I mean, I was telling the truth, but the LinkedIn interview specifically that got like 890,000 views or something, that one, they did not have any intent to work with me. But there was this one guy that saw me ask, that worked at LinkedIn, and he saw me like make the pitch to them what I was trying to do. And when I walked away, not with like a sad puppy dog face, but I'm like, just think about it. He said, this is what the show's all about. So he had me come in there and we did the interview, and it was great. And that was actually the most viral video we had. So that was a lot of fun. But the big point is, it's like these dropping the needle on anybody that you pass by and you see that they have a really great story and they're trying to be there to learn, but they're also there to network and also teach too. So it's not about being like a sales conference where you're just there trying to sell people on it. You don't have to. It's very inboundy. Yeah. So just kind of the way it sounds. It's a place that's extremely safe for anybody that's in this industry to just kind of jump in and have some fun.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Are you still with us, Tracy?
Yeah, I need to figure out what my, I don't know, I guess pitch is. I don't even know what I'm doing at this point. I'm going to walk up with my cell phone in hand and be like, hey, do you want to talk about why you're here?
You should find your spin. You should find your spin on it. If it's a specific type of like industry that you work in, or strategy that you're looking after, or things that you're finding that are really fun about the show, that you want to help express that kind of to a larger audience that can't make it to inbound. That's the kind of way I took it. It wasn't really more about trying to get people to give, this is a platform to pitch. It was like, you're missing inbound and we're not blaming you for it, but we want to give you as much of the experience as we can to show you that it is valuable. And even though you couldn't be here, we want to give you as much of the insights as we can as while we're on site with everybody.
Yeah. I'd say like
that's helpful. Yeah, that's good.
Easy win, Tracy, is it's your first time there.
Yeah.
What do you absolutely have to experience during your first time there? Because one of two things will happen. Somebody will have been there. There'll be a veteran like Aaron that'll be able to tell you exactly what you shouldn't miss, or it'll be another first timer that immediately there's another connection that you just go in a different direction with. So yeah, that would be my advice on that front.
That's great. I like it. I've got a couple ideas that I spoke with the community folks about last night. I'm probably gonna be wearing a hat that says something, and I'm gonna have a couple of things that might be conversation starters that I'm wearing. So.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea, and it works. Like for sure. Obviously, from an appropriate perspective, I wouldn't necessarily recommend any dressing up like Deadpool or anything like that.
No, but Chris,
not dressing up.
This is like the funniest thing to me. It's like when you show up, you feel like you're at like a baseball tournament or a bowling tournament. It's like people show up with all of their swag on, and they come in squads, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. Like they come in with their bright yellow jackets or green outfits. Oh, we lost her. But it is one of those situations where I really think it's a lot of fun that you can go to a show like this and be very proud of the brand that you've built for yourself. and have some fun with that too, because there have been a lot of companies that just really show up with the most hysterical outfits and things like that. I think it's great.
Yeah. And appreciate you hanging out with us today, Denny. Yeah, last year, literally like week before, my colleague and close friend Bill Barless was like, hey, I'm just gonna get some shirts printed up. Like we'll put "Let's Build" on there, and like he's a CPQ guy, so it's just like ask me about CPQ, ask me about ERP integration, and that generated opportunity like for him just walking around. Right, this is where there's so much opportunity for just those. You know, you don't necessarily need the permission, right? This is where like don't go crazy with it. Although this is probably the craziest place you could get like with it. I'd say like don't be afraid to try things. Like that's where if it's in good taste and there's actual valuable conversation to be had when they come up to you and see like don't put something on a shirt that you can't immediately back up and like have a conversation about just so you can get the conversation, right?
Last night's suggestion was, as we were having conversations, it seemed like folks were very much kind of in the AI space. They were like, hey, I do this with it. I do this with it. And a lot of it seemed like they were doing outside of HubSpot. And just in recent weeks, I've had great conversations with people from within HubSpot showing me all the new stuff. I'm in all these new betas and whatnot. It can do this, it can do that. Your brand kit, your brand voice, all these things that you can do. And I kept finding myself going, HubSpot can already do that. Like HubSpot pretty much already does that. Like they're working on that. And so like by the end of the night, I was like, I need a shirt that says HubSpot can probably do that.
Yeah. Well, the evolution, I think now, especially with a conference like this, and it's happening this year, is there will be industry meetups, and that's really important because the tools that are out there are getting more sophisticated by the moment, which is great to see. I feel like AI is probably learning as I speak right now on the video that's been recorded today. Thank you, AI. But the point, I guess, is it's like there's a subtlety to how you might want to leverage any tool whatsoever in each of the industries. They may not always all be the same in how they're going to be valued. So AI is one, and in the space that I work in, it's just highly regulated. You can't always use AI, but there are places that you can. And so it's like trying to figure out at a show like this, how does your industry, Tracy, that you're working in and the customers that you work with, how can they take value of this and see it being used in a valuable, in a valuable way every day? And that's for me what I try to learn the most when I go to a show like this now. It's not just inbound as a strategy as a whole. It's like, what can inbound really do for me and the customers that I work with?
Entirely. Yeah. I'm in the financial services industry. So it's highly regulated and nothing happens without it going through compliance and all the things. We can only, as of right now, use bits and pieces of HubSpot. I can't even build my website on it right now because it has to go through the compliant platform. So there are definitely conversations to be had around that, and just a lot of thought, and that's one of the things we're actually building. We're in the financial services. We help families get closer through their finances and lots of communication around that. So that's the financial planning side, but we're also building a side that we're kind of test demoing on ourselves, if you will, right now, that's basically running your practice through HubSpot and all of the things that you have to take into account if you're going to try to do that. So I've got two kind of avenues I'm coming at this with.
Yeah. Man, I think helping families communicate better is an excellent story to share. I think that's a good point, Aaron. Like the whole, I'm doing this show just as much for the correspondence as it is to share. Like there's so much opportunity. Don't be afraid to share anything at all, because the more voices we have, the more points of view we have talking about these updates, right? That's the stuff that HubSpot cannot do themselves. They can tell us how it functions, right? But all the use cases, all the nuance to each different industry and the layers within those industries, whether it's marketing, sales, service, all the there's so many different aspects to it that that's the whole goal here, is to get as many people talking about, their experiences and what HubSpot means to them and the value that they see as HubSpot moves like 1,000 miles an hour in one direction and straight towards AI. So it's for all the reasons, this is going to be a very unique inbound experience this year?
I think that the more that we discuss how we're going to leverage it in each of our own industries, it could impact the roadmap for where HubSpot takes its platform is next, and or how they even how they function. I should say structure the conference too. That I do think that there are more opportunities for them to become more industry specific at times. And I think that would be very, very valuable to those that are saying that they're in marketing, but marketing is different when I'm in finance, or marketing is different when I'm in manufacturing, or if I'm in defense, or if I'm in healthcare, or whatever else it might be. Because it does exist across all these crazy industries, but it's done so differently. The commonalities are there, and HubSpot tries to give us a platform that lets us do a lot of different things. But as you're saying, Chris, it's like there's a lot of things we should learn about the nuance of it, and how it can be leveraged. And I'm hopeful that as we talk more, HubSpot's listening and take some playbooks from how we operate and what we need in the future. I don't know if it's just AI alone. There's other things I think about platforms like this that they shouldn't forget about. I think there's a lot of interest and excitement around what these tools can do, but I think it's going to get to a point where like we're all wondering what our own value is. And so my team has been talking about how do we keep the human in the loop, and show that we are in control of these things and we can give it the spin that we need on it, and give it some value to our clients. It's not just like kind of a spray and pray situation of just throw AI on it and it'll fix it. Because at some point it's just AI selling to AI, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. In most cases, it only happens if we let it. And that's sort of like, I mean, we didn't plan this, but thanks for teaming me up, Aaron. Like I just gave a community presentation about like thinking beyond replacement, right? Like, and how can we magnify? That's why I'm excited for inbound. Like AI first does not mean replace all the users, right? It means turn the dial up to 11 for everybody that is a HubSpot user, and the value, like the fact that you'll be able to access it from Claude or ChatGPT or the LLMs, like basically this HubSpot everywhere concept, which they've started talking about. Okay, in a connected world, it's not about where you do the stuff. It's just that you do the stuff, right? And
it's a tool in
the
toolbox for me. It's a tool in the toolbox, and I don't want it to feel. We actually met with a client the other day, a prospective client, I should say, maybe not yet signed up, but a prospective client. And they impressed the shmoo out of my team when they showed us a video they produced, and it was all 3D. It was actually pretty good in storytelling. The script, everything was generated with AI. They plugged in the ideas and they generated the images and then created the videos and created all these scenes and storyboarded it out. The only thing that was missing was music, honestly. But everything else was there, and it was rather strong. I think if an LA animation house were to see that 5-10 years ago, they would have put a 6-figure, price tag on it. So I look at it as accessibility. It's like leveling the playing field, that AI is giving us a whole nother level that we hadn't had before. And it's allowing us to maybe even be more creative or spend time in the areas that we want to spend the time in. But I'm never going to, I'm being recorded, I know, but I see it as a tool in the toolbox. If I do allow it to take over, it's really not, I don't think it's going to really show value to our clients. It really need to have some expertise in inference, that there are humans at the end of all this, and we have to be like human to human connection. AI just cannot replace that. Oh, and by the way, I'll just one more plug on inbound for this, Chris, too. For those that are not considering going to inbound, going to a show and being at a place live is so much different than just attending webinars or going to digital conferences and things like that. It just has a completely different feeling, like you used to go to the old movie theaters, or if you're going to go to a Broadway show or something. You have this impact of the audience energy, and that is absolutely what you see and feel when you go to a conference like this. So again, if you're considering and you haven't thought about it yet, but you want a very different kind of experience, just get out of your office. This is definitely a conference where you're going to enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah, to that point, after COVID, all the things, we got, I think, really used to this kind of conversation that the three of us are having right now. Last night, being in the room with some of the other community folks, the laughs were bigger and the conversations were deeper, and the multitasking was not a thing. Technically, if I wanted to, my laptop's right behind me. I could be I could be sending an email right now as we speak if I wanted to, but last night we were standing, and some of us had cocktails or whatever, and we were actually speaking with one another. and paying attention to the answer, not just, you know, prepping for our response. We were having a conversation without our phones in our hands, and that was so nice.
Yeah.
For a couple of hours.
Inbound, yeah, inbound is the high school reunion you didn't know you needed.
Yes. No, I think that's,
Is that good? That's a good one.
yeah, no, I'm 100% aligned with you guys. Like AI, when you see it as an enabler of that human connection and that just being present, like in handling all the other stuff, it gets really powerful, and we start having some real meaningful relationships. And I look forward to that big time. But we are already a little bit over. I want to thank both of you for hanging out with me today, and just being correspondents and help sharing the message, you know, that is inbound. It's going to be exciting times, and you know, hey, maybe we'll see you back again on the road to inbound.
Yes, would love it.
There you
Chris,
go.
thanks for making the space for us, and I look forward to actually being in the same place as you come this fall in September. Same thing with you, Tracy. I look forward to meeting you there.
Yeah, it's nice to have 2 new friends. I'll see you there.
It'll be great.
Get ready for hundreds more.
All right,
folks.
Exactly.
Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again, Aaron and Tracy. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.